Morning, everyone. I agree with everything Cora said, so I support that, including her best wishes for the new year. I wish you all a healthy new year, a successful new year, and an innovative new year. And if we all innovate a bit, we'll be successful as well. I had written down 5 points which I wanted to share. I'm not the world's greatest expert on RegTech, far from it, so don't expect me to give great insights. But of course, dealing with technology, dealing with financial regulation, we are confronted with regulatory technology. And the first point I'd like to make is that RegTech for us is a natural corollary of FinTech. I would even go a bit further and say, we might not have FinTech, it may not develop, but we do need RegTech. The reason is that the financial sector is so complex. The relationships in the financial sector are so complex that it's beyond human comprehension to do this manually, to actually manage and govern this with just human intervention. You need technology to do this. Yes, people say regulation is complex, and that's true, but even if there weren't any regulation, if you see the kind of webs financial players spin around markets, you can only manage this by advanced technology. So the innovation which we see in the technological space should be used by the financial sector. Of course, as we see more and more FinTech, we would expect to also see more and more use of technology for regulatory compliance. But, and that's the second point, regulatory compliance shouldn't be just sort of to fulfill the whims or desires of the regulators. Of course, you have to because it's the law and you have to respect the law. But it would really be a pity for the management of a firm if it only invested into compliance and RegTech just to please the regulator. Surely the data which are generated for regulatory purposes, for compliance purposes, are essential data for the firm's governance. And I would imagine, or I would certainly hope, that the risk management of the firm, the senior management of the firm, would be interested in this data and would want to have some control over what is actually going on. What are the exposures these firms are experiencing? What is the performance of these products? So to present the RegTech challenge as, oh, regulation is also complicated and we need to please the regulators and therefore we need to automate this, I think is a bit too simplified. RegTech really needs to be, and it's kind of the third point, it needs to be integrated into the business processes, as compliance always should be. Firms that have compliance as an afterthought or as a separate activity really set themselves up for problems, because compliance, respect of regulation, respect of the regulatory framework, internal governance has to be throughout a firm, throughout a firm's management. And so if technology, if firms themselves are technology driven, you would imagine that also their compliance and their governance is technology driven, and it becomes integrated into the business processes. Regulatory compliance really, and I kind of made that point, be it through RegTech or not, isn't really there to just serve the regulators' wishes, but it really is there to serve company management and company governance. And if you're going to conduct your business using technology, why would you not use technology to assist your governance and your management? Now, of course, there is also the pure regulatory requirement of reporting. Regulators need to have all kinds of reports. The market needs to have data, and this is costly to generate. And there are complexities in this relationship, and regulators, from their side, need to be able and willing, or willing and able, to actually receive the RegTech generated information. And that's not always the case. If we see, for example, and not that I read them all the time because they're not that interesting, but the requirements, technical requirements on how reporting has to be done and so on, you sort of said, well, really, that is not necessarily conducive to technology-enabled compliance. There's a lot of requirements for paper-based, document-based, PDF-based information, which is a pity because at the receiving end for regulators, what really can you do with a text document? What really can you do with a PDF file? Well, you can read it, it probably looks nice, but you can't really process it. RegTech and the ability, excuse me, to extract data and to transmit data to regulators, to the market in a much more efficient way also provides huge opportunities for regulators themselves to do more meaningful supervision. It provides huge opportunities for the market to do more meaningful assessments of what it is, how certain financial products, how certain financial institutions are performing. The last point, and I sort of said, is that regulation is indeed complex, and there's the business is complex, and there's an enormous opportunity here. There is such a thing as the business of compliance. And we see firms themselves investing heavily in this, but I see a fair number of firms here in the room who make it their business to comply or to assist others in complying. If we want to have a more technology-enabled compliance for governance purposes, for management purposes, for regulatory purposes, I think there are probably a number of preconditions that have to be met. I've got 4, there may be more, but the 4 that immediately came to mind were the availability, the usability, the transferability, and the standardization of data. If the data are not available, if they're not standardized, if they're not machine readable, it is extremely hard to actually have contemporary or future-oriented compliance. The second, and Cora already referred to that, is the technology neutrality of regulation. And of course, we say it all the time, regulation has to be technology neutral, and we aspire it. But I think we have to recognize as regulators, in the Commission drafting it, but also in Parliament Council, in the European supervisory authorities, that technology neutrality is a great challenge. It's extremely hard to come up with rules that are genuinely technology neutral, because it is so hard to predict the future and what technology will bring. And regulation, whether we like it or not, tends to be a reflection of the reality we see around us, and we try to capture that reality, or we inspire ourselves on that reality to draft the rules. And the rules, even with the best of intentions, aren't always technology neutral, so I think we should put in an extra effort to make them even more technology neutral than they are already. The third precondition, I mentioned it already, is I think the willingness, and I think the willingness is there, but also the ability of regulators to handle compliance in a different way and the information they receive in a different way. And this is hard because regulators have limited means, limited resources, so they need to get the information in a particular way, and there is room for progress there. And the last area, the last precondition, I think, is, and we see this in a number of technology areas, is what I would call the outsourcing arrangements. Compliance is extremely complex. You may need assistance, or it may be much more efficient to make use of third-party providers to assist you to do this better. There are economies of scale, economies of scope in this. Take, for example, anti-money laundering and know your customer requirements. Some firms specialize in this. But our outsourcing frameworks aren't necessarily always contributing or helping this. We pick up a lot of signals from market participants that they say, well, our desire to outsource some of its activities, and it would be more efficient if we outsourced it, are hindered by requirements that imply that if you outsource the activity, there is more risk, or the regulator is doubtful about it. So I think that if we really want to see this RegTech community developing, also in the interest of better compliance, better governance of the firms, more meaningful reporting, that also we should see at how we can promote more flexible, more meaningful outsourcing. And this question of outsourcing is not limited to just RegTech. We also see this in other areas. These are the points I would like to make here at the beginning, but of course we'll be discussing this further later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kerstens.